Hello, this is Blaine Nelson. I'm back with COVID Cooking. Today is a two-part program. We're going to do tomato sauce first, and then we're going to do meatballs. The reason I'm doing that is I cook the meatballs in the sauce. So, first of all, tomato sauce, or pomodoro sauce, or marinara sauce. Pomodoro sauce typically is a lot of the same ingredients as marinara sauce. You have tomatoes, garlic, basil, onions, olive oil. But a pomodoro sauce frequently will have carrots, celery in it, and when it's cooked, it's run through a sieve or put an outboard motor in there or whatever so that it's completely pureed. Marinara sauce, on the other hand, tends to be chunky. So I like mine really chunky. So, I mean, you can do the same thing. At the end, you can put the outboard motor in there and whiz it up and have it be nice and smooth. But I choose not to do that. The original marinara sauce had capers and olives and anchovies in it. But that has sort of fallen by the wayside, and now it's more just a tomato sauce. So some of the things, I've already spoken before about fresh herbs versus dry herbs. If I was just going to make marinara sauce and nothing else, I would use only fresh basil, and I would put it all in at the end. Because I'm going to cook this a little longer than I normally would, I'm going to start out with dry basil and oregano. And then after the meatballs and everything is cooked, then I'm going to put the basil in. So now I'm going to get into the point where people from New York are going to start writing me nasty letters, because whoever's Nona from New York used to cook tomato sauce, or what they call Sunday gravy, and she used to cook that stuff all day long, 5-6 hours. The reason she did that is because Nona had stuff to do. Nona had to do the rest of the meal and laundry and keeping up with the kids and all that stuff. The truth of the matter is, the longer you cook tomatoes, the more acidic they get, which is why everybody who ate that dinner got heartburn. So, just like everything else Italian, get the absolute best ingredients you can get and treat them with respect. So, for me, 100 San Marzano peeled tomatoes is the only way to go. They are, yes, a little more expensive than Hunt's or Heinz or whatever. Always get whole peeled tomatoes, because they have to use the best ones for the whole peel. If you get tomato sauce or diced tomatoes or whatever, pureed tomatoes, they can use other stuff in there. But this guarantees you're going to get the absolute best. They can get way better tomatoes than you or I can. No matter how great our source is, if you grow them yourself, even, not going to be as good as this. They get these tomatoes when they're at their peak, and out of the can, these things are like candy. Unbelievable. So, 100 tomatoes. I also use 100 tomato paste. Typically, I buy the tube because I'm not going to use a whole lot all at one time, and it holds. This particular recipe is, I'm going to use a whole can, so I got a whole can to use. Now, as I've said in previous shows, we're going to start with garlic and onions and olive oil in a cold pan. Cold pan, olive oil. Really, you should use pure olive oil for this, but I'm way too lazy, so I just use extra virgin for everything. The difference being, extra virgin is the first cold press. There's no chemicals, there's no heat. They just run the olives between these giant rocks, and the first stuff that they get is extra virgin. After they run the extra virgin, they'll do another press like that, and it's virgin. After that, they have to add heat and chemicals to get the rest of the oil out. So the next one is pure olive oil, which is, it doesn't have as many solids as the extra virgin does. So it's better to cook with, to saute with. But like I said, I'm too lazy. So I only have extra virgin. So like I said, in a cold pan, and we are gonna let that go. And I'm gonna get the tomatoes. Okay, the onions and the garlic are translucent now. So first thing that goes in is tomato paste. And I always like to saute the tomato paste a little bit. It brings the flavor out. The tomato paste is very sweet, which is going to counteract the acid in the tomatoes. Some people also like to put a little sugar in their tomato sauce. I don't personally like to do that. Although you can also put a little baking soda, because baking soda has a higher pH and it'll counteract the acid of the tomatoes. You don't want to put a lot in there though. So with COVID the way it is, I have been making this tomato sauce, I don't know, once every 3 or 4 weeks. We always keep some of it in the fridge because you never know. And that way it's handy, you got it right away. So now that that's in there, I'm going to get the juice out of these cans because that way it's a little less messy. And then I'll just take the tomatoes and squeeze them in. Got to be careful with this. You want to keep your hand down in the pot. Otherwise you're going to get tomato stuff all over the place. Look at these tomatoes, they're so beautiful, they're so sweet. These are San Marzano, which is an Italian type of tomato. Resembles sort of like a Roma tomato, except the San Marzanos are super sweet. They grow them in California as well. I don't think they're as good. Some of the differences between dried herbs and fresh herbs, the leafy herbs like parsley and basil and oregano, the dry product is a lot stronger than the fresh product. So you have to behave accordingly. So I'm adding a can of water because this is going to cook down for a while. Like I said, the longer you cook tomatoes, the more acidic they get. If I'm just making marinara sauce, I'm going to cook this about half an hour, 45 minutes, and that's it. The longer you cook it, the more acidic it gets. The addition of the meatballs in here adds fat to it. It adds a ton of flavor to it. So it compensates a little bit for the acid. Now I'm going to go, because I'm doing dry herbs, because this is going to cook for a while, I'm going to add basil, dry basil, say a tablespoon, and about half that amount of oregano. Oregano is kind of bitter. Okay, as always, you never season until the end. So if this is just marinara sauce, I'm going to cook it for a half hour. Then I'm going to put in the fresh basil, salt, and black pepper. And probably a little more olive oil. And that's it, marinara sauce.